Let's talk about this even further with our friend there, national security analyst and expert, and retired Marine intelligence officer, Hal Kempfer. He joins me. Hal, thanks for being with us and good to see you. So I just want to reiterate this. This is the first time we've heard from Assad. This was apparently a Facebook post here. I have a picture of it there, posted by this Turkish journalist who notes that there is no shred of remorse or any sense of responsibility to the people who supported him to the very end here. Hal, in it, he says, quote, "I did not leave the country as part of a plan as it was reported earlier." Okay, Hal, if that's the case, why not come back to Damascus if you're the Assad family?
Well, Andrew, absolutely. Why not come back? You know, his little story of events that he went to the Russian base to help command the troops because some of the front lines were collapsing, and then it started collapsing around the Russian bases, and it somehow, you know, he mysteriously got swooped up at the Russian evacuation and ended up in Moscow, much to his, I don't know, surprise. It's not quite clear. It's rather odd. His depiction of events is strange. I mean, it's all very clear. You know, he lied to his general staff. He lied to everybody around him and said, hey, it literally was telling his one of his aides, I'll see you tomorrow morning. And then snuck out, got on a plane, went to Khmeimim, which is that big Russian air base. And then he got on a Russian transport and went to Moscow. And there's more coming out, more reports that the Russians told him, you have to leave. If you don't leave, you're going to get captured. And they didn't, you know, and I will say nothing said that they used the illusion of Gaddafi in Libya, but everybody in the Middle East, every dictator there remembers what happened to Gaddafi in Libya. So you don't really have to say too much.
Sure.
And that he planned this escape. So it's interesting. This may be, you know, I was thinking about this. This may be the last public pronouncement like this that the press is even interested in.
Yeah.
Because what they're finding are these mass graves.
Wow.
And they're in the prisons where they're seeing these torture chambers and they're hearing the horrific tales. And then they're going out and it's almost like the killing fields of Cambodia, you know, where they go out there and they find these mass graves, these, you know, where they executed, tortured people, and it's just a horrific situation. So there may be a point here where he can make pronouncements, but it's not going to get much coverage because everyone's going to see him as nothing but a bloodthirsty despot on the order of Pol Pot and some of the others that I can think of.
Yeah, I want to put the letter up again because I think it's interesting. I want to kind of highlight one of the paragraphs here. I know it's hard to read and see. I'm going to read it for you. This one here, and you can comment on whether or not this is a face-saving measure, rather, or purely delusion on Assad's part. He says, "At no point during these events did I consider stepping down or seeking refuge, nor was such a proposal made by any individual or party. The only course of action was to continue fighting against the terrorist onslaught." And I ask again, then why didn't he stay to do just that?
Why didn't he stay? And actually, is it a face-saving gesture? I think it is. In his own mind, though, he may have thought that somehow he was fighting the good fight and he was holding off to the very end, but his actions speak otherwise. His actions indicate that when he thought his life was in danger, he immediately fled, thought nothing of him, nothing of anyone else, fled, and actually some of his some of his family members were killed.
Yeah.
They didn't realize that the regime had vaporized, and they were fleeing to Iraq, and they were killed by HTS.
Yeah.
So they didn't even get a heads up to get out of there. Although he had sent his immediate family to Moscow earlier. So I think it's interesting, but I think delusional is not a stretch in his own mind. Maybe he's convinced himself that's what he did, but I think the facts speak otherwise.
Okay. Hal, let's talk about Israel's role in all of this. A live picture there in Tel Aviv. And you know, and we've talked about this, Israel has been pounding what it says are military sites in Syria after Assad's collapse, wiping out air defenses and most of the arsenal of the Syrian army. Israeli troops have also seized a border buffer zone, which, according to the Associated Press, has sparked condemnation with critics accusing Israel of violating the 1974 ceasefire and possibly exploiting the chaos in Syria for a land grab. Let's talk about those claims. Hal, would Israel want to do such things? Because you are seeing some type of discourse happening on social media, and two camps are forming. One camp is Israel wanted Assad to stay in power for whatever reasons. The other camp saying it is beneficial that Assad is gone for Israel here. Help us explain those two modes of thought, and where is the reality? Where do you fall on it, too?
Well, in terms of security, it's probably better that Assad is gone than he's there, depending on what comes to replace him. Right now, with HTS under Jelani, right now it has not turned into a terror free-for-all or something like that. Certainly a great concern when you look back at his lineage, going back to al-Qaeda, that you would end up getting something worse than what you were getting rid of. But that has not happened. And interestingly, his HTS government, if you will, has shown great restraint, working with a number of institutions and officials that were there before. They even have, and this is just stunning when you look at it. They are guarding the gates around the big Russian air base and out there by the naval base. They actually have, they made their way out there. They have their personnel at those bases, but they are actually safeguarding, at least that's the reports, the Russians that are on those bases, which is phenomenal. We consider a little over a week ago, the Russians were literally bombing them with their fighter bombers. So it's just a stunning turn of events. So in that regard, Israel's looking at all of this and probably saying, okay, maybe this is better. Certainly it's, and of course, Hezbollah came out today and said that basically they're cut off from the main supply route through Syria. So that's very good for Israel. Now, Israel, by all reports, has gone north. They've taken up more parts of the Golan Heights. They've taken up the largest mountain in Syria, which is right north of the Golan Heights, so that they control the dominant terrain there. And I imagine they're going to stay there for some time until the security situation settles down.
Okay. Hal, it's not only Israel conducting all of this into Syria. The United States continues as well here. I want to put this up from our Lucas Tomlinson, that the U.S. military Central Command today says it launched a second round of airstrikes in Syria, killing 12 ISIS fighters in former Assad regime and Russian-controlled areas. So our efforts continue as well, Hal.
Well, our mission there is counter ISIS. That's always been our mission. That's why we have our forces there, is to counter ISIS. We work with the Syrian Democratic Front, which is basically SDF, which is a Kurdish-dominated organization, very closely. And so we're trying to make sure that we keep a lid on ISIS, that they don't use this period of chaos to dramatically expand territorial or otherwise in that area. So yes, you're going to see more of that. I should also mention that we're hitting a lot of these places in ways that we couldn't hit them before, because as you saw with the first strikes, we're able to get the B-52 bombers in there, dropping ordnance that we previously couldn't drop. We had the A-10 Warthogs working the ground in ways that other aircraft can't work it. And then at the same time, the Israelis are doing massive airstrikes. It's estimated they've taken out 90% of the Assad regime's air defense capabilities. I mean, they have been hitting every place. They just hit a huge ammunition depot in Tartus on the Mediterranean coast, right near that naval base. That was one of the, if you see the video, it's one of the biggest explosions I've seen. Whatever they hit, they definitely hit something where they got a massive sympathetic detonation of whatever ordnance is there. That's what Israel's been doing, is to try and eliminate this, because their fear is that these air defense missiles and other ordnance will fall into the hands of HTS and the groups with HTS. And HTS is it is a certified terrorist organization. Right. I mean, we have designated it a terrorist organization, and some of the other groups aligned with HTS are just as bad.
Hal, while we have you, because you are so knowledgeable about a host of subjects, and we use that expertise here on Live Now, our viewers know that. We're going to step away from the Middle East and just get you to respond to an update, a statement put out, a joint statement put out by some of these federal partners on the ongoing drone frenzy